Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us again for another transitioning webinar in partnership with AFCEA Nova. I'd like to introduce Jim Palmisano from AFCEA Nova to kick us off this evening. Jim?
Thanks, Kathleen. And I wanted to welcome everybody and thank everybody for taking the time in your evening to join us. We're absolutely thrilled. All of us on the call here are vets ourselves, and we know how challenging it can be to transition from a military job or a civilian job into industry. And we really want to make this a great forum for you to learn more and some tips from the panel that we have assembled. So I'm Jim Palmisano. I'm the Vice President of AFCEA Nova Government Military Affairs. What does that mean? I get to serve on a great board that represents over 6,000 industry and individual members that support the National Capital and Northern Virginia military complex. And for me, being former Air Force, that's so rewarding. So AFCEA Nova is very involved in all of the military services, and we're trying to help industry to military transition of information. And tonight, what we want to do is help you with your transition from military or civilian service. So with that, I'll introduce and turn it back over to Kathleen. And before I do that, Kathleen, I wanted to thank you and ClearedJobs.Net. Your partnership with AFCEA Nova for over the last 10 years plus has been extensive and invaluable to us. So I wanted to say upfront to you and your team, thank you for helping us set up this panel, but also the content that you've built into our AFCEA Nova site for our military folks that are on the call here today, where they can go search for more information. With that, Kathleen, back to you.
Jim, thank you so much. It has always been our honor and pleasure to support AFCEA Nova and its mission to make sure that there is great communication between industry and the military, because we're all supporting the mission together. And it's always been great to work with so many volunteers at the chapter who really want to help transitioning veterans better understand their career opportunities. And with that, I'd like to introduce our panelists, have them introduce themselves, and sort of kick it off with what they're going to share with us tonight. So first, Patrick, why don't you share who you are with the chapter and what your current job is?
Hi, everyone. I'm Patrick Surbeck. I currently work for Oracle as an account executive, and I cover down on all the Army. So my real job is to help the military actually see the possibilities with technical solutions to their challenges that they may not have ever imagined. So happy to be here. Happy to support AFCEA Nova.
And Samantha, share with our audience who you are and what you do with the chapter and what job you have right now.
Absolutely. So hello, everyone. Samantha Haberlack, retired Lieutenant Colonel from the Air Force, 26 years active duty time. My last job in the Air Force was one of those jobs where you're doing IT digital transformation, but you're also within the career field. So mostly personnel, some finance, and a whole lot of IT experience in my time in. So like I said, Air Force, but during that last bit of time that I had in the military, I got to know AFCEA pretty well. So I'm still a volunteer with AFCEA. I was a transitioning person back in 2018, just like you. So it was nice to have this exact venue years ago to support me in my transition. So I'm excited to be here with you guys today and talk about yours.
So Patrick, let's talk a little bit more about your MOS and what challenges that you saw in your transition story.
Yeah, sure. So I started my military career in 1998 when I originally enlisted in the National Guard. Following that, I received a commission through ROTC and went off as an active Army officer, serving in field artillery to begin with my career in the 82nd Airborne Division. Then following that, I decided to make the transition over to psychological operations, where I spent the majority of my remaining career before transitioning over to becoming an Army civilian in 2014. Bounced around to a number of positions, had great opportunities as a civil servant, and then ultimately changed over and became a DoD a DoD civilian as well, primarily working in the military intelligence and foreign intelligence. But after years of doing that, a total of 23 years in and around the Army, I found it time to look for something else. I was 40 years old and didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. I'd been doing basically the same types of things since I was 17 years old. So, I guess my early on in my career, I never really thought about that transition, right? I was, you're always in the moment. You keep deploying, come back, go again, do it again, and really focus on your skill set. I said, if I had to look back and do it over again, I probably would have thought about that a lot earlier in my career and made more plans, and started my interaction with industry a lot earlier. Does that answer the question, Kathleen?
Yes, it does. Samantha, so you touched a little bit on, the fact that you were bouncing around dealing with digital transformation. But first off, I want to know the name of your cat. You're still?
You can see my cat. I was trying to lean my camera up so you couldn't be, but he's so sweet. His name is Zorro. He's fantastic. We couldn't get Zorro. My kids have been asking for a cat our entire career. Couldn't get him until I was close to retirement, when I knew I was going to hold still. So kind of leads into this. When you move, when you bounce around, your life is bouncing around from different base to base. Like I said, I joined at 18. I was enlisted and then ROTC and an officer. So with that, as you move and you take your family from place to place to place, sometimes it's like that settling moment when, hey, I can have a cat. So I didn't say which company I'm with. I'm with the company called Definitive Logic. And that was a great transition for me to take what I knew active duty and what I was working active duty and then continue that drive and mission in my heart to continue digital transformation for the government and take what I had learned and continue to support not just the Air Force, but other services, other federal organizations as well. So, but your question, that's my transition story. The thing I'll add about the transition story is I kind of tipped on it in the beginning. Make sure, the things that you don't know, ask the questions, join organizations, join professional organizations, AFCEA. There's other professional organizations out there, ones that are around different career fields. Get to know your options. That's one thing that I would definitely do differently. And the one key thing that I think someone mentored me right before I got out of the military. What they talked to me about was the fact that when you get out of the military, when you're in the military, it's always about what have you done. It's not necessarily about what can you do for that next job. And so I like to tell people what I was told one time, when you're writing your resume and you're getting out and you're ready to transition and have a job outside the military, you got to think not just about what you've done, right? And you can't write a resume about I did this and I did that and I did that. You've got to write your resume about what that knowledge can do for that new organization, understanding what they need and understanding how you can support them. You've got to switch your thought process there. That's the one thing with my transition story that I can definitely pinpoint that I learned. So.
Well, you bring up some really good questions or some great tips there. And Patrick, why don't you sort of, move along that? What are some of the things that as you moved from your military career to your civilian career, what are some of the things you wish you had known?
That's a tough question, Kathleen, really. It seems like from the time that I entered service, in the Army in '98 to now, things have changed so much, right? And especially when you're looking at getting into the tech industry, it's the world moves so fast. And I guess I started my career, really focused on I'm going to do 4 years and I'm going to get out afterwards and have that. But once I got settled in, I wound up sticking around quite a bit longer and didn't really have my eye on that transition, right? So, like I brought up before, it's keeping that in mind early on to know where you're going and try to explore those options, like Sam said, at an earlier, at an earlier point in your career, so you can actually prepare yourself and do something about it. It's not that you have to get set on, this is, like I jokingly said before, this is what I want to be when I grow up, but it's, how do I enumerate my skills that I have that I've gained in the Army? Where are the gaps, or in the military in general? Where are the gaps now? And be able to really focus on preparing yourself that way. So it's really that self, I guess, introspection to figure out, what you want to do, and then building out a game plan to get there and gain the skills that you need to get out, have the success in your next career that you want to have.
And I think that this is something that I've heard from a lot of people, and I just want to have you delve a little bit more deeply into it, Samantha. Sort of, what are the things you wish you had known as you moved from military to civilian? Because one really great comment that Patrick made about introspection is one that I always bring up in transition classes, yet I always get sort of this glazed over look from the people in the audience saying, like, what do you mean introspection? I'm usually told to do this next thing. Now I have to think about it.
Exactly. You said it right there. That's perfect. I've always been told where I was going to go, what I was going to do, what the needs were. Every once in a while, I had an opportunity where it's like, do I want to do that job or that job or that job? And I have to prepare for that. Well, sure, you have to apply for it. And if you got it, you got to get maybe some more certifications. But it is very different when you can take a moment and you can be like, but what do I want to do? I finally get to choose my path. What is that path? Do I want to become a real estate agent, or I want to be a contractor? Do I want to, break completely away and go try and work for Amazon? Whatever the path it is that you want to take, you finally get to do something about it. But the one thing I'll say, if I could do something different, go back and SkillBridge is fantastic. I know we're going to talk about SkillBridge. There's probably other people, a lot about SkillBridge. Some of these DoD opportunities where you get to go try a job or two, you get to try a company or two. Oh my gosh, if I could go back in time, I would go back and experience that. Because even if you go and you do it, right? You get to experience within a company. If it's a good company that you're with, you'll get to try a few different jobs. Right? You go in, you say, I want to learn to be a PM, a project manager. Okay, cool. Well, if that doesn't go so well, maybe you switch and you go work in the HR department, build up your resume on the HR department, or an internal chief operations officer supporting that person. You can, through SkillBridge, you get to go actually try out a few career fields. And more, and I tell my daughter this too, use some time to figure out what you don't want to do, not just what you do want to do. But let's cross out some things that you think you might want to do it, but let me go experience that. And maybe I cross it out that's a no-go. Too many times you see people going down a path for a while, they go get a certification, and then after it's too late, they realize that wasn't really what they wanted to do. So use SkillBridge as the opportunity to see what you want to do, see what you don't want to do, and kind of get a feel for that. Get certifications. Certifications mean so much.
I'm going to keep you on the hot seat here for a minute, Samantha. So, you mentioned a lot of things that you might have done differently. Are one or two things top on your mind as far as what you would have done differently in your transition?
I think I just I brought up the big ones. Do a few. Another thing I did pretty well. Get on resumes, or not resumes, sorry, get on some, job applications and do some interviews. Don't wait until like, this is the job I want, and it's your very first interview. Your first 2 interviews should not be the job that you really, really want. I think that's really good advice that maybe not many people tell you. Go experience an interview, get yourself prepared for those activities, and don't go straight into the job that you really want. Actually, that is something I would do a little different. But because you learn every instance that you get out there and you meet industry people, you're gonna learn. Yeah, that's that a good summary? Did I hit that?
Yep, you did. So, Patrick, how about you? What are one or two things? I mean, you've talked about a variety of things, and I'm not trying to say what you and Samantha have shared is not important, but sometimes people just want a nugget or two of what they would have done differently.
Yeah, I think Sam really hit on it. I guess now, it's hard to answer that question because ultimately transition's going to happen for everybody, right? And you're going to be successful at it, okay? Because you are going to exit the military. The job market out there, you do have skills to bring to bear. So I feel like I had a successful transition, and I'm happy with that. But I guess it's when somebody asks me that question, if go back and look and say, how would you have done this differently? I don't know. Would I have explored more possibilities out there to see what, to do that, like Sam said, go out and interview a lot and try to figure out some different places. Ultimately I went into my network of folks that I knew prior to and started talking to people that were already on the outside and figured out what's what. So it's really difficult to put one or two things that I wish I would have done differently. I think that it's, don't be afraid of just acting, right? Because no matter what, that'll give you some information about what you want to do, where you want to go, and possibly what's best for you and your family too. So I'm sorry if that's kind of a non-answer, Kathleen, but that's a difficult one.
Well, I understand why it's difficult. What's interesting is having done so many of these over the years, people use very serious suggestions like you have done, saying, do more interviewing, look at your resume more, do more introspection. I remember one person said, everyone has a really formal retirement party, and I decided to do a pig roast, and more people came to it, and that way I got expanded my network, because no one wanted to come to this staid sort of button down tied retirement party. So we all have different suggestions on that. Let's sort of move into the values that you see the military experience has brought to your career. So I'm going to put you back on, Patrick. What are some of the experiences, the aspects of your military experience that have helped you in your career?
Yeah, I can tell you point blank, the biggest one that I have is the ability to deal with ambiguity, right? I mean, if you have been in the military during the time period, the recent times, you've been put in unfamiliar situations, probably your entire career, and you've been successful in figuring that out, right? You've been successful when, in lieu of other guidance, move forward. The don't don't downplay that experience that you have, right? And the other thing that I would say that's helped me transition as well is I chose a path that would lead me to something that was more of a soft landing for myself, because I'm still involved with DoD. I'm still helping out. I still feel that that I'm serving a greater purpose. So if that's something that you want and you feel committed to, I mean, look for those opportunities that allow you to have that touch point within, but you've got to, realizing that you have value, and even if you're an infantryman and 7-8 like the back of your hand, that those are skills that are in there, and there's a matter of translating that to what you can really do. But really don't overlook the fact that you have been dumped into places you didn't know, done things you were never prepared to do, and you figured it out.
Yeah, I think that's something, and I know Samantha can touch a little bit more on this, on the fact that there are so many innate skills that you have as part of the military that people don't put on their resume or don't even think they need to talk about.
Absolutely. I got two. One,
okay.
The first one is, how to be on a team. You know how to be a good member of a team. You know what culture you expect from that team, integrity. You expect your team to be a certain way. So know that, believe in that, believe in yourself in that, and look for a team that can let you keep that culture that you've built. When you're going and looking at different companies, different jobs, there's going to be a lot of them out there. Some of them are going to be beating on your door. Look for the culture that lets you still be you. That's one thing that is definitely going to lead to happiness within your job and your future. And the other thing that you've brought from your military is there is no other organization other than the military in the world. I will say the U.S. military, no one gets leadership experience like we received. No one gets that. When I was a senior airman, I went to in the Air Force, go to Airman Leadership School. They teach you at a super young age to lead your peers, to lead the people, 4 years in the military and you're already like put in leadership positions to supervise other people. That doesn't happen outside the military. It really doesn't. It takes years of experience before you're allowed to lead other people. But they also take the time to send you to schools to have you learn lessons about communicating with other people and leading people. Know that and appreciate that, and bring that along with you. People recognize that. People in companies and organizations around the U.S., they do recognize that, and that's what they expect from you. So it's very exciting, actually.
So yes, this is a key point that a lot of people don't understand, that the leadership skills that you're, not only the situations that you're put in, but also the training that you get from management, leadership, HR issues. These are all things that make you a better professional once you're coming out of the military into the civilian world. But be sure you're bringing that forward in your resume and as part of your interviewing skills. So we're talking a lot about networking. Networking tends to be a big way that we all find jobs, but it's a little different from the military to the civilian on how we do networking. So Samantha, let's talk a little bit about the differences you see and how do you better take those skills from your networking in military communities into civilian communities.
Okay, so every relationship that you build, the people that you meet, your entire time in the military, always, if it's in you to treat other people with respect, it's not like a thought that, hey, I'm doing this for a reason. No, you're doing that because you have integrity and because you want to be respected by your peers and you want to, give results in your job and be seen as somebody who can deliver within your job while you're active duty, right? So that alone is going to build relationships. How I ended up finding the company that I ended up working for, Definitive Logic. My colonel from 2010 was on a call with my husband and remembered my last name and found out that I was retiring. It's the network that you've had, not just the network you're going to build now. Yes, it's fantastic to be with some professional organizations like FCA. It's fantastic to get to know some different companies that are out there that can help you. But it's also the network that you have, the people who have retired before you. Tap that. Let them know. Put out there, hey, I'm retiring soon. Reach out to people. You just never know where that job's going to come from. And the best way to find a job is through someone that you trust. You're going to get that interview even faster, and they're going to, your people are going to put a good word in for you. And honestly, they're going to tell you the truth if that's a job that's a company that you would want to work for. So it's networking but you're already doing it. Everybody's already doing it. You've been doing it for years. Time to tap into that network.
I think this is something that's very interesting, that we think that networking only happens now outside of the military, but it actually has been happening in the military. So Patrick, you want to talk a little bit about your network that you built during the military and how you've been able to leverage that into the civilian world?
Sure, absolutely. The network, Sam was spot on when she said, you're networking already. You're doing it on a regular basis. I mean, she's absolutely right. You never know where that job's going to come from. You never know, who you're going to run into. I mean, the community around the military is as small as the military is, and you're going to keep interacting with the same folks, down the line. I run into more former peers of mine, out and about just in regular life now than I ever would have imagined. And so, but I can tell you this, once you do leave the military, I would say that you take networking for granted when you're in the military, because of the fact that you always have something in common with the person that you're dealing with in most cases, and that's the fact that you both volunteered to be in the military. No matter what branch, you can still find some commonality in that. When you get out, you have to be more proactive about that, and not rely on the fact that this person's wearing the same uniform as I am, and so we've already got that. You have to actually search for commonalities with other folks. They're there. You just have to, you have to get out there and do it yourself. And, like Sam said, organizations like AFCEA are great for that, because you're putting yourself in a scenario where everybody's there for the same reason. They want to engage with you. You want to engage with them.
So, Patrick, I'm going to keep you on with this one. So can you give us one particular example of how AFCEA has helped with your transition and your networking?
Sure. I got involved with AFCEA pretty much from the get-go of starting to work at Oracle. And it's an organization that my whole team participates in pretty heavily, including senior leadership. And so I knew that jumping into this would be a great thing. So being able to volunteer with AFCEA, I was part of the planning committee for Army IT Day this year. It allowed me to interact with folks that, they all came from the same place as we did. They've just been out and about a little longer. So those people turn into mentors, turn into connectors that can connect you to other folks. So, really getting involved with an organization like AFCEA will absolutely breed dividends in your search for a new job, but as well as really, knowing what else is out there, and also making those connections to push business forward as well.
So Sam, how about you? How has AFCEA helped in your transition?
Oh my gosh, growth in my knowledge in the industry. So much. I mean, yes, networking, of course, networking, but getting an opportunity. You can call it luck. I was lucky enough. I worked directly for the HR area, the A1 CIO shop in the Air Force. So everything HRIT. And we were doing the strategy for digital transformation. And he put me in the hot seat. He was like, hey, I have this event at AFCEA and you're going to go do it for me. You're going to be on a panel. And it's opportunities like that when you get to speak, because it forces you to study up. It forces you to learn it and love it and own it, and then go and speak to it. And then that network turns into that knowledge. So an organization like AFCEA isn't just about, I'm going to go and I'm going to meet some people. When you're active duty, do it when you're active duty, right? Because that's where you wear your uniform anywhere you go in the DC area or whichever area that you live in. And people are going to come and want to talk to you, of course, but ask them what their job is about. Ask them about their company, turn it around on them and talk to them about it. But beyond that, it's learning about the industry, right? So that's why I said, pick an organization. AFCEA, you're on with us today. So I'm sure that there's something around the AFCEA organization which has attracted you. But whatever your professional, functional area, join that too. Because you're going to learn more about that by going to the events. It's so important in your personal growth, in your ability to grow after you get your job, to be promoted at your future job. So
thanks. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to put Jim on the spot. Jim, tell us a little bit about how AFCEA supported your transition in networking.
That's a great question. And I just got to say up front, what a great job you all have done. And the information flow here is spot on. As I heard you speak, all the common things I would have said, you guys were talking about. So the key points for me, what I realized, when I was Air Force 29 years, was ICBM launch officer. Then I moved to medical, so explain that one, right? ICBM's to medical. But when I transitioned, I wasn't a core IT kind of person, but I had a lot of great experience and knowledge on processes, whether it was medical processes or operational processes and so forth, and downrange stuff. So when I come out to FC and I interact with a lot of the IT infrastructure that supports the military complex in the DC area, I realize that I have something to bring to the game. I have a lot of functional knowledge. I may not be a coder. I may not be IT centric, a network person, but I also have skills that the industry complex really needs. And I've seen that. And I've been able to use my skills from my experience in the Air Force out into the industry to help them modernize. And so equally valuable are the functional skills you bring with you. I would just say that, Kathleen. That's the big takeaway I had.
Well, I want to thank everyone, Jim, Patrick, Samantha, for joining me this afternoon, this evening. We've had comments come in from Hawaii, overseas. We've had people at Oconus, Fort Bragg, we've had Belvoir, we've had Fort Meade. So we've really touched on a lot of people, and that has been really great. I just want to share with everyone, if you're interested to learn more about AVSEA and NOVA and their upcoming events, please check the website that's listed on the screen right now. Or you can go to avsea.org to search for whatever chapter is local to you. There are many that are on local basis. We also have a virtual job fair coming up on May 19th, and you can search for jobs anywhere around the country. It's been my pleasure to be part of this panel this afternoon. I'm going to turn it back over to Jim for our final words.
Great. Again, thank you all for what you do. And realize that from the industry point of view, I happen to work at Oracle, but from an industry point of view, we all view you as exceptional. So whether you're you're an airman, a soldier, a Marine, a Guardian, seaman, it doesn't matter. You're exceptional. So take that with you as you start your transition. Network out with us. You can click on the Get Involved tab on our AVSEA page, and then we will help you vector in and get you information that you could help you with your transition. But again, thank you all for taking the time, and we just wish that everybody stays safe and have a good evening.
Thank you all. Take care. Bye-bye.